Coming up this week on Cruisin', we have cars that are
very unusual
and cars that are,
because it's only the original ones, as they said.
From the very rare
They only built 96 of them.
to the cars of royalty
I always say they were the cars of kings and presidents.
and even a celebrity car.
Hey, isn't that the Get Smart car?
This episode of Cruisin' is out of this world.
Very Buck Rogers meets Flash Gordon.
Cruisin' blasts off right now.
Hi everybody, welcome to Cruisin'. With a show as big as we've got for you today, you gotta pull out the backup, so we pulled them out of the garage. Mike Velick has joined us today because we're at Stan Hywet Hall and Garden in Akron, Ohio. This is Concours d'Elegance. Now with a name that swanky, you gotta expect the best of the best and the rarest of the rare. Let's go see what we find.
Here we are at the Concours d'Elegance, and usually when you think of Vespa, you think of a little scooter. But here, it's kind of little, but definitely not a scooter. What can you tell me about your 59 here?
Well, we found it in Texas. It was a basket case then. Couldn't resist the fact that it was very unusual. Had to do a lot of research and to figure out how to get it started, because it hadn't ran for 9 years and everything was pretty much junk on it. There was no floor, no upholstering. There was a rag in the carburetor and everything was, the tires were flat and the bumpers were thrown inside and stuff. And the panel on the front was bolted on. Had no idea what was even behind it, but it was quite a challenge. But the fact that it was so unusual, just said, I'm up for the challenge. Some parts that weren't available at the time, I don't think they're still available. So I end up building parts or making parts, making molds and casting parts for it.
So it helped to have a little bit of talent to begin with, to know what you were doing to make some of these rare parts that couldn't be available.
Actually, it was a matter of, I wanted the parts, and I taught myself, I was a truck driver by trade, and it was just a matter, I like to mess around in a wood shop, and this is like a hobby to me, to take on a challenge and try something different. But the car, they made just a little over 30,000 of them total production. They imported less than 2,000 to the States. They say they upped the horsepower for the U.S. model to 20. Back in France, they were 14 horse. So 3-speed gearbox with reverse. Air-cooled, 2-cycle, 2-cylinder, pretty much a basic engine, Suicide doors. As you can see, the battery's on a drawer in the front of the car. In the master cylinder, you can get to it from there. There's a glass jar for the reservoir. And what's making it unusual is the 2 lids on the glass jar. The threads in the lid on the bottom of the jar, which bolts to the master cylinder, are left-handed threads, and the ones on the top are right-handed. So when you take the lid off, you don't lose your brake fluid. And being the fact that it's back in there, it's a jar and you can see if there's fluid in it.
So 20 horsepower, do you actually drive it and get into that 20 horsepower?
Oh yeah, I mean on level ground, where we live, there's not too much level ground, but on level ground, it'll run, it's comfortable, around 40, 45, 47 mile an hour. I've had as high as 55, but it's really pushing, it's really screaming. Being at the 2-cycle, it's like, it's buzzing like a bunch of bumblebees in your ear all the time.
Well, it's very unique, and I'm glad we actually got to see it here today and talk to you about it.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Tom, I'm a huge fan of all original, unrestored, and survivor cars. Tell us about your 1932 Pierce Arrow. Where'd you get the car?
I bought it out of California. Originally it was in Texas for about 40 years. Before that was in Minnesota. And I'm not sure how long it has been since it has been driven, but we just got it actually started running a few days ago.
Just a few days ago?
Yes.
And you brought it up here to Akron for the show?
Mm-hmm.
Now, you still have the California plate on there, and as I mentioned, and you'll attest to, and obviously the car says a lot about the fact that it is all original and unrestored. Do you have any plans to take this car to a full restoration, or is this just how you like to roll?
Oh, this is going to be a preserved car. I mean, we're going to fix it mechanically so it can be driven safely, but we'll never restore this car because it's only original once, as they say.
What's under the hood?
It's a straight 8. Not very good Pierce Arrow. Pierce Arrow made very good engines, so it's very strong.
The interior certainly shows a lot of comfort, but the operational standpoint, tell us about the ride levers that go on there, and as far as driving the cars, what do you got to do?
Actually, it's just a usual, 3-shift, straight 8. It does have ride controls. You can make the ride softer or harder. Those type of things weren't in cars of lower quality back then, and actually drives fairly nice.
Now, spoke wheels wrapped in rubber. Riding in a car like that, how's that feel? I mean, what kind of ride does that give you?
Oh, it's a fine ride. I mean, they work, perfectly. I mean, they had spoke wheel for many cars up till mid-30s.
Is there anything missing that you know from the 32 Pierce that you're going to need to at least try and find, or is it's all there?
It's all here. I mean, there's a couple locks that are broken, but they're there. It has all the vanities and cigar lighters. It has all the badges and everything that came with. All the lights are original, and so it's a complete original car.
And it all works?
It all will work, but you just need to fix some wiring and such.
And as far as being roadworthy, eventually is this going to be a weekend driver, or you just kind of want to, limit what it does on the road so you can preserve its history?
I'll probably drive it on weekends, of course not during the week or so, but to car shows, and you got to keep a car up and driving to keep it alive. So I plan to drive it as often as I can.
What drew you to the 32 Pierce?
The thing I like about Pierce Arrows is how the headlights grow out of the fenders. I think that's a classic look, and that is what Pierce Arrow is known for, at least in body style.
We're just getting started here at Stan Hywet Hall and Gardens. Stay tuned. We'll see what Mike's got coming up next on Cruisin'.
Now, back to the Concours d'Elegance on Cruisin'.
So Tom, this morning we're unloading and getting ready to do the show, and I turn around because I hear this beautiful sound. And here it is, your Allard here. Can you tell me a little bit about this thing?
This is a 1950 Cadillac powered Allard Roadster, built in 1950, retrofitted from a Ford flathead to the Cadillac preferred engine for racing. So this car has racing history in England.
Amazing little car. I know they did the Cadillac it was preferred for racing, so is there some history behind here then?
This car originally was built with a Ford flathead engine, which was the engine available at the time, but didn't have enough power to compete in international road racing. So the engine was changed to a 331 Cadillac engine, which had a lot more horsepower. The sister car to this finished second at Le Mans in 1950 with a Cadillac powered engine.
Now the car itself, you've owned it for a while, or what's the history behind that?
Yeah, I acquired the car in 2008 at an auction. They're very rare, and had been looking for one for quite a while, and they're just not that available because they only built 96 of them when new. There's only about 50 to 52 or 3 of them accounted for to this day, so the other 30 or 40 cars are missing in action somewhere. Most of them were racing cars, some were touring cars. This particular car has racing history, British hill climb during the period. Some road racing history, but not much. I have not been able to research the total history on the car, but it does have some hill climb history.
And I do understand that you do drive this then.
I do. It's very drivable, very roadworthy. Taken several day trips in it, back and forth, not much more than about 100 miles one way or the other, but it's very drivable, very pleasurable, and certainly gets a lot of looks.
And I noticed from the steering wheel that has been modified from factory to make it where your hands aren't into the dashboard.
Well, the car was modified for racing at one time. At one time, the dashboard was a lot closer to the steering wheel, but the car had been damaged quite heavily at one time and moderately prepared. So I'm thinking that the closeness to the dashboard had to do certainly with the racing, but with the accident history too.
Well, if that thing was wrecked, it's beautiful now, and I got to tell you, it's just a wonderful machine.
Thank you.
Stephen and Amy, 1932 Duesenberg. I can only say that this is the kind of car that needs 2 zip codes to arrive at a location. With the kind of power that's underneath that hood, you need that kind of exhaust chamber. What's underneath the hood?
The Duesenbergs were very unique in that they had almost a racing engine designed by the Duesenberg brothers, and that was their claim to fame, was their racing engines. This engine is a dual overhead cam, 4 valve per cylinder, straight 8, produces 260 horsepower, normally aspirated, and 320 horsepower in the supercharged variation.
Duesenberg luxury obviously goes along with that type of power. Take us a walk through the inside of the car.
Well, these cars were, I always say they were the cars of kings and presidents. They made 468 Model Js over the 6-year run. And each one of them was basically built to the original owner's specifications. The original owner could pick colors, body style, builder. The Murphy Company in Pasadena, California built 80 of the 468 total. And they built more than any other coach builder. This particular car is a Durham, D-E-R-H-A-M, Tourster. And it's a very rare car. There's only a few others in the world, and it's notable there's one other in this show.
Now, just the chassis alone for this vehicle was very high-end, cost a lot of money back in the day. What was the sticker on this car when it came off the line as a custom?
This car probably cost $15,000. Well, to give you a good ballpark, a Ford in 1932 would have cost you about $600 and would have had about 40 horsepower.
Well, you certainly kept it looking fantastic. What's special about it to you, and what makes it distinctive to you from any other Duesenberg?
Oh, the great thing about this car is we drive it a lot. We spend a lot of time with it. It's been all over the country in different events and things. It's not perfect as show cars go, but we consider automobiles an investment, and we take our interest in enjoyment.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Coming up,
And it's actually the same drivetrain as the original Shelby Cobra.
this little red speedster has a Ford engine, but it's not a Ford. That's next. Welcome back to Cruisin'.
Bill, there's a whole lot that goes into a Sunbeam Tiger. Tell us a little bit more about your car.
Well, I bought this car in California about 8 years ago. It was a basket case, and I had it restored, the body and the drivetrain. Was restored. I did the rest of the work myself, all the installation and all the electrical and everything, and here it is.
Now describe a basket case for us. Is there a frame damage? Is there,
There was not frame damage. It wasn't too much rust, but it had been parked underneath a eucalyptus tree for about 12 years. And so the whole interior was toast. The engine was seized up. Everything either was replaced or restored.
What kind of damage can that do to a car?
Well, certainly wherever water puddles, it'll rust. All the electrical system was completely shot. All the seats, anything that wasn't metal was cracked and deteriorated and pretty much shot.
And the engine was seized. Now, one of the key things about the Sunbeam and the Tiger was, it didn't originally have that big Ford V8 in it.
This started life as an Alpine at the factory, but this car and all the Tigers at the factory were modified to be built as Tigers. So this is a totally different thing from an Alpine, but looks about the same. And they put the Ford V8 in it, the Ford transmission and the Ford rear end. So the whole drivetrain is Ford, and it's actually the same drivetrain as the original Shelby Cobra.
Where does the Chrysler history come in?
Chrysler purchased this company that made the Tiger in early 1966 with the idea of competing with Corvettes. They tried to put their own small V8 in the car and it wouldn't fit, no matter what they did. So they were in a position of warrantying a Ford drivetrain. Not so good for them. So they liquidated the company in the middle of '67. And the last Tiger was built in the middle of '67.
With that power underneath the hood, is it fun to drive?
It's a lot of fun to drive.
Does it get away from you?
No. If I was 16, it would get away from me real quick, but I'm pretty careful.
Wisdom comes with seat time, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So when you're doing the restoration, what were your reference points to say, all right, I need to bring this thing back to original?
I joined 2 Tiger clubs when I was looking for the car, one on the East Coast, one on the West Coast. And I also found a gentleman in Dayton. He restored the body, and he was my reference. He knows absolutely everything about Tigers, and I called him probably once a day for 6 months. And I still call him with little questions, but he knows everything, and he told me where to buy the pieces, everything about it, and I followed his direction.
One of the bonuses of going through that type of process is making a lot of friends along the way.
Yeah.
You feel like it's not about winning awards or ribbons or anything else, it's just being out and about and letting people see a car that they may have never seen before.
Yes, that's part of the reason I chose this car, was because it's rare and it's a lot of fun. I get compliments all the time. Somebody will say, my buddy had one of these, or hey, isn't that the Get Smart car? You know, that kind of thing.
Now you're supposed to say the biggest compliment I ever got was being on your TV show.
Absolutely. I was about to say that.
Thank you very much, Bill.
Okay, thank you.
Next up.
Well, it is really rare. It's one of one.
Doesn't get much more rare than that. Coming up on Cruisin'. Now, back to more of the Concours d'Elegance at Stan Hywet Hall & Gardens on Cruisin'.
Okay, so here we've got one that I've never seen before, and Mark is going to tell me a little bit about this because it's a 1955 Flageolet. Mark, you're going to have to go on this because this is a rare bird.
Well, it is really rare. It's one of one. This is the 1955 Flageolet 4Runner. Flageolet is named after its designer and builder, William Flageolet, who was an industrial designer and was considered the father of the little Nash Metropolitan, one of the very first microcars. Bill Flageolet bought this car for himself, actually bought a Jaguar in the early 50s, raced it once or twice, and then took the body off. I mean, this car is already a super sweet, sexy car. Took the aluminum body off from the Jaguar, completely designed this one-off fiberglass body and installed it and drove it until the 70s.
Wow, so that's why I do see the wheels are Jaguar, and so I'm guessing then Jaguar drivetrain.
Exactly, dual overhead cam, 3.4 liter, hopped up engine. As I said, it was the racing version of the XK120, so it's an extremely fast car. By taking the aluminum Jaguar body off and replacing it with this lightweight fiberglass body, he saved 800 pounds, so it made the fast car even faster.
Wow. So now, is the color right? Is everything, or there's some custom modifications from the way he had it?
Originally, I believe it was green and cream, and then somebody that restored it back in the day decided to go with the purple, and quite frankly, I think it looks just fantastic in the purple.
Absolutely, everything goes well, and it is a beautiful car, and I'm glad we got to see it. Anything special with your ownership of it?
I'm representing the Antique Automobile Club of America Museum. It was donated to the AACA Museum about 2.5 years ago, and we've been having a great time with it. One of the unique features of this car is a sliding plexiglass roof. It slides back into the body for nice days like today, or like this morning when it was raining. You can pull it up, and it's a clear plexiglass roof. That's why you'll see the rear view mirror sits up high, because you'll actually look through the clear roof to see behind you.
So I see the door handles look fairly unique on this, something I haven't seen. How's that work?
Well, that little knob, you actually just grab a hold of that ball and pull straight out to open up the door. As I said, the door is very thick. It's made of fiberglass, extremely lightweight, but there are no roll-up windows on this car, and there's no side curtain, so it is definitely a fresh air car.
Yes, so please don't get caught in the rain with that one. Interior, same way. I see there's just a lot of stuff was handmade as a one-off product then.
Sure, correct? Exactly. The interior of the car, the dashboard is strictly Jaguar, and that really hasn't been modified at all other than being padded instead of wood. The seats are all custom built for this car, very space age for its time. Yeah, very, very cool car.
Yeah, very unique
very
looking.
Buck Rogers meets Flash Gordon.
We like, and I'm sure in today's standards, I don't think we could get away with those little bumpers either. But
no, they are not 5-mile-an-hour safety bumpers. No.
They definitely give it a very unique look though.
Sure,
yeah.
Definitely.
Very glad we got to see it.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, we certainly had a chance to see quite a bit here at Stan Hywet Hall and Gardens. Mike, you didn't have to pick up a wrench.
No wrenches.
Got to see some great cars. The grounds are beautiful and fabulous, and the weather cooperated. The promoters here couldn't be more accommodating. So for now, we'll catch you next time on Cruise In.